in Parliament, and many people distance themselves from the same. And I'm looking at this tweet by Honorable Oscar Sudi, the MP for Kapseret, who's known to be very close to President William Ruto. And on his tweet, he's actually used the front page of the Standard and said, "Cherargei and the Standard are one and the same. Don't drag us into this nonsense. We know you are colluding." Do you really think the president stands to gain anything by going after his predecessor?
Well, I think the legal jargons have already been, exhausted by my colleagues. So I look at the political side. And one of the things I want to say, Sam, is that one, I don't think.
Sorry.
I
understand the challenge.
I really don't think that the president is in it. And sometimes we say that if you want to know the honor of the dog, you go for the dog itself. We will know if the president is in it, but it's too soon for us to say that the president is in it. And then I want to bring us back. This is not the first time that we're hearing about the benefit of a retired senior government official being either threatened to be stripped off or being stripped off. Let me bring you back to memory lane. When Moi was finally going home, and they knew that Kibaki was going to be the next president, the first thing they did is they sat down and agreed that President Moi will fully benefit, get all his benefit. And these are things that sometimes happen behind the scene. You don't get to know about them. But I knew a little bit about that they sat and they said, look, you have to leave President retired Moi put. Let him enjoy whatever his retirement is, and none of his properties, none of his businesses, none of anything that he was doing will be touched. And so the agreement was honored. And when President Moi retired, we had President Kibaki. He never talked about Moi. Of course, Moi did not really get into politics, and so his was a little bit smooth. We also know for a fact that when Kibaki was now giving power to Uhuru Kenyatta, the same was discussed because we knew that 2007 wasn't a very good transition. We knew that some people Parliament could be very powerful in one or the other and decide, look, this guy, put us to a mess in 2007, 2008, and why is he benefiting? But lo and behold, he didn't live for too long even to get into that theatrics of whether his benefits will be stripped of him or will be taken away. It was never discussed. And then we have President Uhuru Kenyatta giving power to President William Ruto, who is in place. These were really bosom buddies. I don't know if you remember the early days when they were even adorned in the same tie, the same shirt, and the same trouser. They were twins. They were so conjoined in their vision for this country, and they were for each other. Each, as my friend here said, President Uhuru Kenyatta was to serve 2 terms, and that's 10 years, and then as they had agreed, William Ruto will go for another 10 years. And they were in sync. It would be very difficult to imagine that even though they might not be as close as they were before, for anybody, including Senator Cherargei, to even think that the relationship is so broken that it cannot be mended to a point where literally somebody will threaten his benefit. That will not happen. I saw that with former Prime Minister, the late Honorable Raila Odinga, when politicians showed up and said, look, it's in politics, and it was during Uhuru's tenure. He is in politics. We cannot give him benefit. Remember, these benefits are in the Constitution, but besides that, they are also just meant for very, very few positions in this country. Like Prime Minister, for the first time, I think Honorable Raila Odinga got it. And then you have the President, and then you have the Vice President getting part of them. Musalia Mudavadi served as the shortest part, within the shortest time as the position of Vice President, and is enjoying the park. Is still enjoying the park. So there's positions that are there in the Constitution, and it's protected protected by the Constitution. And so when you have somebody saying that Uhuru Kenyatta is now involved in politics and therefore his benefits need to be stripped, and then you ask yourself, but what is Uhuru Kenyatta doing in Africa? He's been in DRC Congo, he's been in Ghana, he's been in many other places representing this country on peace.
They argue that that's not politics. They argue that that's
no, but they're talking about politicians. They're talking about lack of peace. They're talking about countries that are not doing well in their own rights, where there are coups and stuff like that. That's politics. You cannot take that away. So is it okay for him to talk about this outside the country, but when you come into the country...
To be sure, active politics is not defined in the Presidential Retirement Benefits Act.
But they talk about involvement in a political party.
Correct.
No. You see, what do you mean by active politics? It is not defined there. So that's an open-ended area and a zone that we are getting into. And so he's very right when he brings that issue. And then why isn't these